Well, basically they're given inspiration from the Creator, Jehovah, to perceive, or they're actually given a vision through what's called a sapisu when the angels descend, but they present it's like a portal. It's a perception of light, is what they give them, a perception of a higher grade of light than where they are. And so the mortal understands that this is a way out of where they are, like their dilemma or whatever it is that they're having. The mortal can't just step upward like in a Dahai, which is the Dahai is the stairwell. But what they do in the rise is they rise up like this, like they ramp up to it. So it isn't really a step. It is a step, but they can't, generally speaking, can't approach it directly, or they can't step right up to it from here to there. But they have to progress toward it, and some people, when they go forward, many people, it's not a constant ascension, but rather it's up and down and up and down and up and down. But eventually they get to that step, and they make that step. Once a person has mastered a step, then they can turn around and help those who are in the step that they were just on below, and help them to come up to the next step. And when they get practiced at that, and they essentially the master of the light, that step, then they can step up to it and back down from it, up to it and back down from it as necessary. But until they've actually arrived there through this process, through that sort of ramping up to it, through their changes of their behavior and their mindset and their intentions and their sentiment and so forth, and their resolution, their resolve, they're going to, because if nothing else, Jehovah will allow the environment. He doesn't really provide in the sense that he doesn't actually punish. Jehovah never punishes, but he allows a person's fruits to come to them. And if they've been sowing things, or their forebears have been sowing things that haven't been particularly wholesome, well, they receive that result. They have to live with that fruit. And so Jehovah might have his kingdom step back a step and up a step away from this person, or a nation, or whomever, a family, or whomever, a group, and allow them to perceive their true condition, to experience these things. And therefore, that's the evil that's inherent there. If they have been sowing darkness, then they will reap darkness. And it's not necessarily an eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth type thing, but it's the intention of what's being sown, and then that coming around, the fruit of that, how it worked out in the receptivity, and how others have received that, and what they have done with that, with regard to the light of the matter. In other words, it's not the recipient's darkness that determines if I'm sowing something. It's the light in it that I'm sowing, and how that affects the light, and how that helps this person over here, the recipient, what they're going to do with that light. Now, if it misguides them or whatever, well, then that error in my imparting well, then that comes back to me. My intent, if I have a good intent, that intent comes back to me. And so I might get something back in a fruit that's slightly off skewed or whatever, because of that's what I had been sowing. So in that sense, it's an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but not in the sense that I imparted a particular, what I consider to be wisdom to help someone else, and it was slightly off, or it was right on the mark. But regardless, it was part of that as the intent and all that, and as it comes around. Now, if I'm imparting and I'm imparting with evil intent, well, that evil intent also comes back around. And so anger, if someone vents out in anger or holds hatred, or the selfishness, or is in a warrior type spirit, those are attitude spirits that result in darkness, and that's what comes back to a person through a dark environment, a dark milieu that they are in, spiritually as well as corporeally, and ultimately everything works out outward to the corporeal realm. And so, anyway, so to help a person to find their way forward up to that next level, because that's often a big challenge. Because in this day of Cosman, we can't lead people. We don't say, like in the past and during the time of Cephas, it said, that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. Well, that was a lesson to be learned back then. But now in Cosman, we can't even lead the horse to water. The most we can do is we point out the water to them, and we point out the advantages. That, hey, you are thirsty, aren't you? And there is some nice water, but you can't actually if you're going to stay in the light, you can't force them. Now, obviously there are people who are going to try to force others and all that, but that's of the beast in this era, in this new age that we're in, and that's actually an imposition on that other person, and it comes back to the person who did the sowing. They will reap the repercussions of that. It's a great labor, but it's also a great challenge. I mean, it's something that it's not easy to do, to help others to unfold in the light, to blossom in the light, to find and to help them to move according to those ways that Jehovah has laid out for a person and peoples to go forward in. Because in this day and age, we have to allow people their freedom to choose and to not give advice unless you're asked for advice, to not tell people what to do, because people need to feel accomplishment, that they themselves have actually done something that was of their own decision, that they can perceive that it was of their own decision, of their own perception and conclusion that they have come to, that they weren't forced into it, because there's no honor at all in being forced, and it's degrading to actually have to be forced into something, and that just breeds resentment. The resentment is from the recipient, and in some skewed way, the sower may also feel resentment that he has to be sowing, or she has to be sowing in this particular way, but that's different. We're not talking about that. We're talking about receiving something that somebody's forcing you to do something. Inside you don't want that. No one does want that inside them. And so that's a part of this, what we have in this new age here, this seventh era of Cosman. this freedom that we have, because we have in our souls now, we have a comprehensive judgment. And therefore we have not only the capacity to perceive right from wrong, but we have the duty, so to speak, or the obligation, the opportunity, the responsibility of deciding, of making our own decision and deciding which way to go forth. Now, even if somebody else makes a decision for you or for the group, you still have to decide in you whether you're going to go along with it or not. So it's always your decision, always. And the most anyone can do is help you to perceive, you know, the most anyway, they can turn on a hall light, so to speak, and you go and you look and you go, oh yeah, I see that, I didn't see that before, and somebody will click on another light over here, oh yes, and marvelously, and then everybody gets to see all these different illuminations, all these different points of view, all these different aspects and facets of a situation.